Hey everybody, welcome to Smark Avengers. My name is Corey, and with me is Dylan. John is not joining us today once again.
He has a lot of issues. John has,
Well, because of the holidays, they've extended visitation to his children.
his family life is falling apart. It really
Is it falling apart? I mean, two of them are very, very well confined to a particular area.
Well, I would say those two are not doing very well.
They're in the best place for them to be, though.
Listen, they've got free food, sure,
Yeah.
but maybe mentally they're not where they need to be.
No.
They have other stuff on their minds.
Mainly that they're out of their minds.
Correct. Exactly.
And all of the crimes that, because of how out of the minds they are, that they're committing.
So many crimes. And then John has to deal with that, and he's like, I don't want to have to deal with the crimes of my children when I'm already dealing with the crimes that I commit myself.
Yeah.
But I mean, in a way, it's nice that he kept it in the family.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you can tell, if you're watching this is the first time we've ever done video recording. John, of course, is not here because he doesn't want to incriminate himself.
Whenever you see us doing this video podcast, you will see me and Corey, who are either free of crimes or unafraid of all the crimes we've committed. I'm like, you'll never catch me. They've never caught me yet. You'll never catch me. Ego. So John is very afraid of the police figuring out his identity for the multitude of crimes that he has committed and has yet to commit. And that's just plans. Him. Not just talking about, obviously, all the criminal acts that his criminally insane children have committed or plan to commit. I don't know much about his wife. That's one. / ex-wife. Put that in the corner. I tried to burp away from the mic, but I should have just leaned into it. I was talking with John, his wife, possibly ex-wife. We don't know. John won't tell us, and that's his right. He doesn't have to tell us. No. There's no reason that we were at the wedding, obviously.
Yeah.
When he got married.
Well, yeah, and we ran his background whenever we hired him into the show. So yeah, we know what's there.
But we weren't at his divorce, so I don't know. I don't think you invite people to a divorce. I don't think so.
Well, I mean, there's divorce hearings, and it's usually in a court setting. Some people attend those.
Well, we didn't. He didn't invite us.
He didn't invite us.
Did you get invited for that, or?
No. I asked him about it, and in typical John fashion, he's like, must have gotten lost in the post.
But that's the thing. I don't know if they're properly divorced or if it's just like a rocky patch, because people go through that, that people go through tough times, and I don't know if he's like, maybe he'll pull it around. Like, God, he needs a win. God bless him. He needs a win.
John needs a win.
He really does.
John really actually doesn't need a win.
No,
we need him to stop getting wins. Is our issue with him.
Exactly, because he stole all my Spider-Man guys in the auction.
He did, and then he made you spend the rest of your money for Carnage,
which is, I was gonna say, a dick move.
$47, yeah,
worth it. Carnage would kill him
almost
immediately.
Half of your money was spent to Carnage.
Dude, I got loads of those guys. I actually had like a pretty good list. So I'm like,
I think I had the most people because I was spending like pennies.
Yeah, but I'm like, dude, if I want Carnage, like, I'm gonna pay big bucks for him. And I was really lenient. I give him who did they give him? Goblin?
You gave him Green Goblin, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, what kind of deal? And his deal was fuck you. I'm like, well, I'm gonna remember this. I'm gonna remember this.
I won't draw. I won't rate. I remember because the other auction there was like something like that happened too, where it was like, well, I'm not gonna drive up the price, and he immediately jumped to like $16. What I've heard is that John, you can't trust him.
No, can't trust him. And he seems like he's all like, oh, he's a nice guy. Oh, but as we've established, A, convicted criminal. Well, we don't know if he's convicted. Definitely a criminal.
Been caught yet.
Definitely a criminal. B, criminally insane children. C, may or may not be going through a divorce. That's not his fault. I can't. Well, maybe it is his fault.
Listen,
we don't know.
Relationships are hard.
They are hard, but also if you're a career criminal and your children are criminally insane, I could see why a woman would be like, I'm good, man. I'm good.
Your priorities they're in different places than they should be at that point.
You don't care about me. All you care about is all the crimes you do. Yeah, and he's like, shut up.
People are committing.
Yeah, And he's sitting there trying to think of ways to screw me over. What?
When was the last time you took me somewhere nice?
Yeah, when did we go ice skating? And he's like, God damn it, I don't like ice skating. And he throws the cop at her.
Stabs her.
Okay.
we progressed.
we had two very different.
Well, I'm in America, so that's actually, violence is where we just go.
Yeah, but you guys would shoot each other. Over here, we would stab each other.
That's true.
Get ready for that counter. There you go. That's a beautiful one for you. That's two. If you guys are listening to this on Spotify, a lot of this won't make any sense. But because we're now doing a video podcast on YouTube, you should check us out on YouTube. We are not. That's three. You can now count how many times I burp into the microphone, which I've decided to do for the pleasure of the YouTube audience. I think that you guys deserve a little bit of fun, and I'm here to provide that fun.
That's fun.
Is it?
Maybe.
Guys, on the comments, tell me if you think it's fun that I burp all the time. Or tell me if you think it's very unprofessional, because I am not a professional. So
well, I mean, look at the both of us. I think now that we can see one another, we are very obviously the most professional people in the world.
We got microphones. I can't see your microphone. My microphone is front and center. Oh, look at you with your fucking catgut microphone. Is that what they call it?
Catguts?
I think, isn't it the thing, the muffler over the top of the microphone is a catgut?
Oh, maybe.
I think that's what they call it.
I need to get a new one though, because it does have a short in it. I can hear you in this ear, but not this ear.
You need new headphones.
No, I tried that. It's not the headphones.
I think it's the headphones.
Then I bought two headphones with the exact same problem.
Maybe you should buy a different set of headphones.
Maybe.
I'm just coming up with ideas.
You're the idea man of the group.
Clearly.
That's why we have that TeePublic store. Well, on that note, like I said, this is another Smark Avengers -1. John can't be with us for reasons we've spent 9 minutes now disclosing.
We talked about that extensively.
Yes. And
the crimes.
Yeah, I cannot wait for him to listen to that. We're going to be right at the top of his hit list.
Why did you wait till I took a drink before you said that? It's rude.
So anyway, today, pretty simple format, because we are not an X-Men podcast.
But we love the X-Men.
We're going to talk about the X-Men.
And the X-Men love us.
It's one of those areas where we kind of like merge a little bit.
It is true. Like there's not a whole lot of topics that all three of us know a lot about, but we all love the X-Men. And that's because they're kick-ass.
Yeah. So, like, I've always been the DC guy, and, like, you're very much a Spider-Man guy, and John is a little bit everywhere.
Yeah, John knows a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah. So, like, the X-Men is that one part of the circle graph where we all just link.
Yeah. I wonder, like, why it is. Do you think it is because the whole point of the X-Men was that, like, they were supposed to represent, like, a marginalized group of people, ostracized from the world,
and
like,
three white men were also very marginalized. Is what
that's not what I was going to say.
Okay.
Is that three kind of like nerdy guys who like have our own like opinions and probably don't fit it. Like, I'm gonna say this. I don't know if this applies to you or John, the criminally insane. We don't know if he's criminally insane.
No.
But he is a criminal. But like, oftentimes I feel like I don't fit in anywhere. Especially around here. Northern Ireland's a very small place, and I stick out like a sore thumb. And you always feel that kind of kinship with the X-Men because you're like, well,
yeah, I'm
a bit of an outsider too. And I feel like that's just obviously, like you said, we're three very privileged white men. So in that respect, maybe not so much, but in like more philosophical terms, like the people that we are, we don't fit in with society as much as maybe
weirdos.
We should. We're the sickos, but not really the sickos because that's a whole.
I don't want to be in the sickos.
We're the weirdos, but not the sickos.
Exactly. I like that. I like that separation.
What the fuck?
I don't know. It's a Skype function. I play Dungeons and Dragons with a group of people on Discord, and Discord does the exact same fucking thing.
For anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, on Spotify, I was just waving my hand around, and then they put a little emoji of a thumbs up on my screen. I don't know why. I'm going to keep waving my hands around just to see if it happens again. We will find out. That's why I said, what the fuck? This whole video thing is gonna cause us a lot of problems.
No, I think it'll be
Spotify
great.
is gonna be like, what the fuck?
I think it'll be great. Well, that's that Spotify's like.
Well,
Hey,
you should
did you
just
watch the
watch us on
video?
YouTube then. Fuck Spotify. We don't get paid from Spotify.
I don't think we do. We don't. Well, we don't run ads, so of course
We don't get paid on YouTube either, but the potential is there. Whereas on Spotify, I know what you get paid on Spotify.
pennies.
What's the counter at?
Burps.
Because that's 4 now, right? Or 5?
That's 4.
4? You're right. You're gonna have to keep a tally of this because there's gonna be a lot more coming. It's gonna get real bad.
So to divert us back onto the path, I feel like somehow like being able to see each other is going to make it even like easier to get off the beaten trail. I don't know why I feel that is.
I think it's whenever we do like -1 episodes, it's so easy to just not. Because when we do the 3 of us, there's always somebody that's like, we got to get back on track here. But when it's just 2 people, it's like, just start. It's like
Did
one of us
John
is a
have
teacher.
That problem?
I think. Well, I was also really drunk when he did that one, but like, I feel like there's definitely like one of us is a teacher, and let's be honest, it's either you or John. It's not me that brings shit back on track. Somebody is like the teacher, like, okay, that's enough dicking around. And if one of those 2 people is missing, it's way too easy for me to just abuse my position of power and start dicking around. You know, that's just.
I will tell you that as somebody who has spoken to some people who listen to the show, you are a fan favorite. I'm gonna make you do a spit take on camera. Is what's happening apparently.
A fan favorite.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know about that. Am I the Kramer?
Yeah, you're the Kramer.
Is that a good thing?
I don't know. Just don't do stand up in New York after the show ends.
I have a great idea. If somebody heckles me, I know exactly what this. No, you haven't heard it yet, though.
I have a feeling I know.
It's really funny.
All right.
You had to be there. You had to be there.
Yeah. Okay.
Wait, what are we at 4?
There we
go. How well are these coming through?
They're coming. They're crisp.
Dude, we're only like fucking 50 minutes in. I've burped 5 times.
Yeah, but we're hitting double digits quickly. So
I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get triple digits.
There you go. So because we are not an X-Men podcast, but we enjoy the X-Men, we have obviously read a lot of X-Men or consumed X-Men in one capacity or another, whether it's video games, television shows, or movies. Of course, being the kind of people that we are and being critics of things, we find things to pick apart, stuff that happens a little too frequently that we don't care for, or what have you. So this episode, because it's a -1 and we're kind of thrown off our regular kind of programming, I thought it would just be fun to kind of go over some pet peeves in the X-Men world that you may have.
You want me to start?
I mean, I can start if you would like.
I think you should start, and then I will hear what you have to say, and then come up with an answer based on whatever your thing was.
I think that's how most conversations go, yes.
That is the way. I have no opinions of my own, but I hear somebody else's thing, I go, oh, I have a thing to say about that, and then that's how I make friends. And that's why I have no friends.
Dylan,
don't rob me. I don't want your pity.
All right. So my first pet peeve in the X-Men world is I cannot stand it when they put Juggernaut on the X-Men lineups. It bothers the shit out of
the
me.
X-Men.
Yeah, he's not a mutant.
Yes.
He was their enemy for the longest time. He's more interesting as an enemy. And there are other characters that can provide the same service that he does, because he's just the strength guy on the team.
Colossus,
easily. I mean, even then, you could be like, strong guy is literally in the name.
Strong guy. Dude, where's strong guy?
Is he still a demon lord? I don't know.
I think he can back out of hell, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Krakoa.
There's only so long you can be the Lord of Hell before you go, I need something bigger.
Yeah, I think Mephisto is Lord of Hell again.
Yeah, well, did he beat up Strong Guy? Probably not.
No, I think he took it from Johnny Blaze.
Johnny Blaze beat Strong Guy? Did Strong Guy just give it up?
I think he just gave it up.
Coward.
Yeah,
But
he's
I agree with you. I'll be honest with you, dude. I totally, and this is exactly what I said, where I hear somebody else say an opinion, and then I piggyback off that with my own opinion. I agree with that. I would go further with that and say that most villains appearing on the X-Men I don't like, because it's either one of two things. It's either like a really insincere like redemption story, or it's like a double cross, right?
Yeah.
So like,
well, and to kind of to interrupt for a second, it usually one leads to the other. It's I'm gonna try to redeem myself, but fuck you, I'm not.
Right. So like, I know like Mystique has like dabbled in like being on the X-Men team sometimes. Dude, we all know what Mystique's gonna do. Mystique is gonna look out for Mystique. Like, that's not dick
And
around.
Destiny.
Yeah,
Only two people she cares about.
And I don't mind that. I think that's a really good dynamic, that Mystique loves Destiny, Destiny loves Mystique. Love it. But we know this. Why don't everybody else know that?
Yeah.
You know? And the Juggernaut, let's see him like the Juggernaut. Like, dude, the Juggernaut has beat the shit out of the X-Men 100 times. Why do you think that the 101 time, like, oh, he's good now? Like, oh, great. Don't worry about it. You know?
Yeah.
And that's why I always, and this is John's not gonna like this, but I always
that's what
hate
I was
it.
holding for.
John, but listen, if by this point John hasn't already hated the podcast, I'll be surprised, because we've told a lot of his secrets.
He's got his notebook out, and we just took our names from the middle of the list of people to get to the top.
So to piggyback off like what you were talking about with the Juggernaut being on the X-Men, I really don't like Magneto being in the X-Men. I don't like it, because in the 80s they did the gimmick where Magneto like kind of changed his tune and became the de facto leader of the X-Men. But the whole point of that storyline was you saw the difference in relationship between how Xavier would run the X-Men and how Magneto runs the X-Men. And Magneto run the X-Men the way he ran the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Like, you can see that he's not a good teacher, but he's a good leader. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Right? And that dynamic was great, because you understood a lot more about Magneto, and you understood why he would go back to being a villain after that, because he felt that he wasn't able to give the students the right mentorship that they deserved, because he didn't know how to do that. He wasn't that guy. He's the bad guy. He's the villain. And I, for a long, long time, have just opposed the entire idea of Magneto being a good guy, because he's not a good guy. And the longer they tease him, or well, it's not a tease anymore. He's
Marvel have just lineups right now.
Yeah, Marvel have like accepted by now that he is a straight up good guy, and I'm like, well, why? How? What part of Magneto has changed where he's like, you know what, humanity's great. I've changed my entire life view.
That's the problem, is he never comes around to that. Like, when Magneto is like a member of the X-Men or whatever, it's always coming from a place of like, we have to protect our own, endangered species kind of stuff. He's never turned to the X-Men for the sake of like, I'm going to be a better person. It's always like, we've established Krakoa and I'm going to lead Krakoa, or like, now the mutants are endangered because we lost Krakoa and due to Orcus, and now like my body's giving up on me because I was resurrected.
Which happens.
But yeah, that was oddly enough, that's the exact same team the Juggernaut's on. So that team has Juggernaut and Magneto on it.
Who's writing that team?
I think Stegman.
That's not the Gail Simone team.
No. The Gail Simone team is a little more classic.
Let's not get too specific about this, but the Gail Simone team, pretty tight, pretty classic, pretty standard, pretty X-Men. Yeah? And then the other one is like Magneto and Juggernaut. You're like, well, I mean.
So this is the lineup of this team. They all have something in common. Actually, they all have something in common. So you have Cyclops, who had his momentary heel turn. where he was like Phoenix guy, and then like was the Cyclops was right motif, where even Magneto was like, hell yeah, Scott Summers, you know what you're doing now. So you got him. You got Beast, who former villain essentially, even though it's a clone thing.
Don't even talk to me.
Yeah. You've got Magic, who is a Lord of Limbo and a demon. Mm-hmm. Quentin Quire, who is a former terrorist.
Oh boy, I love being a former terrorist. I've changed.
Yeah.
I hate
Heidi, who is one of the Generation Hope characters. She was also like, she was part of like that book that was all about Sabretooth being stuck in the hells of Krakoa. So like she was somebody who had committed a crime that they threw her in prison essentially. Yeah. Juggernaut, and then you have Quanon, the Quanon Psylocke, who's an assassin. So like the Scott Summers X-Men lineup are all full of people who are like former villains.
Yes, you can see that. Like they're clearly like a troubled past. Yes. But then, like, what was the Gail Simone group?
Well, so the Gail Simone, like I said,
because she's Gambit, clearly a former troublemaker.
Rogue.
She has Rogue, a former troublemaker.
Wolverine.
A consistent troublemaker.
All right, but then the other two throws that whole argument out of place because one of them is Jubilee, former vampire.
She was a vampire.
Yeah, and then Nightcrawler.
Which is a trouble. I would say a vampire is a troublemaker.
Yeah. And then Nightcrawler.
Yeah, he's good. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
he's all right.
So like we're going back to the Mystique thing. It always is interesting to me that like Mystique is like, oh, Rogue, my daughter. I need to protect Rogue. Rogue's my angel. And then it's just like Nightcrawler, whose only crime is just being Nightcrawler, is like fucking loathed by his mother. Because they put out that like one shot like X-Men Blue that was all about the origin, where it was revealed that Nightcrawler's parents are Mystique and Destiny. That Mystique was in a male form and impregnated Destiny,
which I love.
Yeah, that was a great twist. But she was still abusive and shitty to him afterwards. It's like, man, I don't understand why you hate Nightcrawler so much. He's literally the most lovable X-Men.
I think that was 6.
That was a quiet one.
I burped a little bit, but I'm going to count that.
Yeah. It was 6.
Because Chris Claremont always wanted to write that into his books. He said that was one of the things they wouldn't let him do, was the Mystique Destiny thing. So obviously he kind of tiptoed around that. But I'm like, dude, that actually like makes the most sense. If you have a relationship between Destiny and like a shape-shifting mutant, like why wouldn't that be a thing?
Yeah.
But it makes total sense. It's so weird that Marvel would be like, no, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, doesn't make any sense? What the fuck? You think Captain America being trapped in ice for 17 years is great?
I mean, let's point out like we'll just call it the elephant in the room. It was like 1980s Marvel, and not only are you dealing with the aspect of like a lesbian couple being the mother of Nightcrawler, but also like the gender politics of like Mystique in general, just switching between male and female forms, like it doesn't fucking matter anyway.
Yeah.
But having the biology to impregnate someone while in a male form.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I could see 1980s Marvel going, I don't know if we want to open up that can of worms. Because, I mean, you saw how they handled the whole genocide thing with Jean Grey, where, like, Chris Claremont's like, yeah, but we're going to turn her back. And they're like, she killed an entire solar system.
We're going to turn her back.
It's like, going to be fine. I don't know what you're worried about.
But that was his, like, that's his problem there, where you're like, that was him being incorrect.
Yes.
And saying, we'll just turn it back. Can't do that. Whereas I have the flip side argument with the Magneto thing, whereas, like, that's why it's so hard for me to buy Magneto as a good guy, because you're like, well, look at the shit he did as a bad guy. He had years and years and years of him being a terrible. That was part of the thing that Grant Morrison said. You're familiar with this bit?
Yeah.
Where
we talked about it previously because John wasn't crazy about it.
We have talked about this, and I loved that they did that with Magneto, because that was part of the Magneto thing. He is so like crazy and hell bent on showing that mutants are the right thing to do, that he like inadvertently does the thing that he hates the most, which was obviously he was in a concentration camp, and then during Grant Morrison's run, he ends up concentrating humans into camps. because he thinks that's the right thing for them to do. He doesn't see the irony in him doing that because he just thinks that's the right thing to do. And I'm like, well, that's Magneto, perfectly encapsulated. Like, that is it. That makes the most sense to me. And then whenever Wolverine kills him, it's justified. It's 100% justified. And I don't remember the correct quote. We can probably look it up. You and me can look this up. But Morrison was asked about that at some point, and he said something like, because obviously whenever this happened, the films were happening at the time, and they were doing very well. And Marvel said, we don't really want Magneto to be dead. And Morrison was like, fuck you. And so they brought him back. Obviously, they brought Magneto back very quickly after that with no explanation. But somebody asked Grant Morrison about this, and he said something along the lines of, Magneto was a cunt, he deserved it. And I'm like, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. If you look at the history of Magneto up until Grant Morrison, he was a terrible person. And then obviously what he did in Grant Morrison's run was so like well played. And then ended up being like a horrible man. It all makes sense. At some point, Magneto did deserve to atone for his sins, right? And I think the atonement of his sins in being, oh, Zorn was not Magneto, it's a different guy, and he died, so the real Magneto is still alive, is not a good way to atone for those sins. Even despite the Grant Morrison stuff, he still did shit before that.
Yeah.
That he did that the Zorn didn't do. So do you have the quote?
I do have the quote. So just to put it out there, he does not say Magneto was a cunt and he deserved it. Just so we put that out there.
I was sure he said the word cunt.
What he says is, what people often forget, of course, is that Magneto, unlike the lovely Sir Ian McKellen, is a mad old terrorist twat.
Oh, okay.
No matter how he justifies his stupid, brutal behavior, or how anyone else tries to justify it, in the end, he's just an old bastard.
Okay, so he used different swear words. I was sure he used the word cunt. Obviously, he said the word twat. But you can see where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, in America, that's one of those, like, hard words that people are like, I don't know if you should say that.
I am familiar with this. Yeah, I know this for a fact. Sure. I know this, but I come from Ireland, where this word...
Yeah, and it's not as much a big deal.
Bandied around a lot. We give a fuck. We say that word a lot. Here in Scotland, we say it a lot. But the sentiment is there in that Morrison...
I just had a reminder of when we were doing the episode on like the 90s like Batman movies. 7. We were doing the 90s Batman movies, and you guys found out that Danny Dyer was somebody who was being considered for Robin, and just John going, "Hey there, you cunt." I was like, whoa.
Not that far away.
Danny
he does do that.
Dyer.
Nah, I'm Danny fucking Dyer. It's pretty good.
So anyway.
Does that count? That's a little baby one.
I'll give it to you.
8? All right. 8. So basically, what we don't like, I mean... So
I'm going to introduce another one to you, okay? Because...
Well, I wanted to...
Hold on.
I wanted to like...
We're not ending it yet.
No. I wanted to put like a break in that because I need to go take a piss for it. So I wanted to have a clean ending for you to like cut.
Sure.
Should we...
We'll see if I cut it.
Should I even cut, or should I just stay here and just piss myself?
Listen, man, I'm not a cop. You do what you want.
Do cops arrest you for that?
Public urination, usually.
But they're pissing yourself. Like, I mean, that's me. That's on me.
I don't know, man.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you pissed in a street corner, fair enough. If you pissed yourself, that's you did that to you.
So here's the thing. The more you're talking about it, the more I'm inclined just to leave all of this in.
Okay.
Right.
Well, if you do leave it in, that would make sense why we make a little cut in a second.
Yeah.
To cut from me taking a piss and then coming back from the piss. Okay, you can uncut that. Did you hear that?
I did hear that.
You made a face that made it seem like you heard that.
I did. All right. To jump back in, so we've kind of went over, and this actually just might be the whole episode, just us talking about like villains being brought in as heroes, considering we're at like 33 minutes in at this
I mean,
point.
that's a good. Well, 20 minutes of that was us talking about John.
Yeah, about 15. I mean, but we're talking about a villain turning into a hero. John's our hero.
He's our villain.
I'm trying to redeem it so he doesn't kill us.
He killed all those people.
I'm trying to make sure he doesn't kill us.
He'll never kill us. He'll never find me. He might kill you.
I mean, good luck. America's very big.
Yeah, but my house is really hard to find.
There you go.
Yeah.
Maybe he won't kill either of us.
Why would he? We're his best friends.
Yeah. We're like family, but we're not criminally insane.
No, we're not his family because obviously his family is
genetics, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we've talked about like Juggernaut becoming a member of the X-Men for some fucking reason, even though A, he's not a mutant. That's the big factor. And B, like his entire characterization was kind of built around how much he hated his fucking brother or his stepbrother.
Right.
I didn't like they lost that. I liked that whole idea of like childhood trauma affected both of them very differently. Where Xavier was like also abused by the dad, but like he like made it work. You know, like he processed it healthily.
But that's one of the things we're talking about. Is like I hate that idea that like they have this redemption arc and they like forget a lot of the old shit that made them the characters they are. And like redemption arcs aren't just as simple as saying, oh, one day he woke up and he's like, oh, I'm gonna save children and I don't like being a villain anymore. That's not the way it is. Because if you look at the Juggernaut, he was always a guy that like had his own set of morals. Like he was always a bad guy, but he loved like Black Tom Cassidy. He would do anything for that guy. They were best friends. Are you saying that a man who is like a really close connection to somebody else is a bad guy? Yes, because that's shades of gray.
Yeah.
He's allowed to have his own moral problems and then also like be a villain or a good guy. Like that just showing some emotion doesn't automatically turn you to a good guy. That's not how that works.
So you actually gave me a really great opening, because the other type of let's turn this villain into a hero is to take a villain and then turn him into a comedy hero. Black Tom Cassidy is kind of a joke in like the Krakoa area, because like his whole deal, oh my god, yeah, like his whole deal was like, I think he was like technically a member of X-Force, but his whole deal nine.
Don't that'll upset John.
Oh.
I don't
because of how much he loves Magneto.
Yes, correct. Yeah, that's it.
So anyway, so Black Tom Cassidy's whole deal was like he was connected to, because his powers are like wood based essentially, that he was connected to Krakoa and was like Krakoa's security officer, because he could connect in. Yeah, he could connect into the Earth and like sense disruptions and disturbances. But he made him like kind of pathetic and pitiful.
Yeah.
Like the idea that stretching himself that thin was making him a little loony. And then like the other one is like when they started during this, was it the Schism when Cyclops and Wolverine split?
Yeah, I think that was Schism.
Yeah, so it was like right after the Phoenix saga where Cyclops and some other people got Phoenix powers.
Mm-hmm.
And Wolverine started the Jean Grey Institute, because Wolverine, in his weird boner for Jean Grey that's never going to go away, even in death, he was still pining over her. Like when they were bringing in characters to be teachers and stuff, they had Toad, but he was the janitor.
He was a janitor, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just like make a joke out of Toad. And listen, it's not that difficult to make a joke out of Toad. He's Toad for God's sake.
That's the thing about Toad. And I like the problem with Toad was that like obviously like way back in the day, he was clearly a joke because like look at the fucking state of him. Mm-hmm. But then they modernized Toad and you're like, well, he actually is kind of cool now. Like I like him being a more modern character. Whenever he was like way back in the day, he's like this weird medieval, like out of place, strange fucking jester. Like it didn't make any sense. But when they modernized him, you're like, well, I like this. This Toad has a bit of an attitude. He's a bit sassy. He's not like so downtrodden. I like that, and I didn't like the idea of. I mean, like if he's the janitor in the Jean Grey thing, like he's still the lackey. Like he's not
Yeah.
getting any character development. He's just a lackey in a different location.
No, his
It's the same
characterization
thing.
was his romance with Husk, who like he had a romance angle with Husk, and it was like kind of written out that Husk was kind of not right in her own head, because I guess her powers being that she rips her skin off and she has a new set of powers underneath it.
I do that every day. Rip my skin off.
Yeah.
Makes me feel alive.
So anyway, yeah, like that was, so they had like a relationship, and it was like Husk was the one pursuing it, and Toad was kind of like weirdly apprehensive about the whole thing. It's just like a weird take. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then like you have like Pyro joining the Marauders, and like he has like a full face tattoo now of like a skull. And like yeah, like so Pyro has a tattoo of a skull on his face.
But wasn't Pyro always a bad guy?
Pyro was always a bad guy, but Marauders was the Jerry Duggan book during the Krakoa era that Kitty Pryde was basically like a pirate queen, and Pyro was a member of her crew.
Because when you say Marauders, I'm like, I know what the Marauders mean.
Yeah, the Mr. Sinister group that
So I'm like, well, that makes sense. Pyro being a Marauder, yeah, that makes sense.
No. So he was a member of the Marauders book.
Why didn't he give him a different name? A pirate name. The Marauders doesn't sound like a pirate name.
No, and I wouldn't want to be on the team that was associated with the genocide, where they killed the Morlocks. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
But no, and then now he's a member of X Factor. It's with the face tattoo still.
I don't know.
Yeah, so that like those are like the three kind of like jokey characters, like, oh, this villain that used to be a problem is now just a goofball.
Yeah, you know what? I think that is a big like pet peeve, to be fair. Like, because I think that's worse. Like Juggernaut being on the X-Men, you're like, well, that sucks, but at least he's like the Juggernaut. He's still beating the shit out of people. Obviously, like you said, somebody else could have filled that role, but at least he's still the Juggernaut in some manner. They've obviously tweaked his character, but he's still kind of the Juggernaut. But if he was a Juggernaut, and then like every episode he was like slipping on a banana skin or whatever, like, oh, whoops, and he knocks himself out, and like, oh, I guess we have to do this fight without the Juggernaut. Like that shit's like, that's not funny, but also like not to his character. And you probably see that with a lot of these like comedy X-Men characters. Like, well, why are these guys being the comic relief? You have characters developed in the X-Men universe that are kind of comic relief anyway. You don't need to. And again, I want to keep doing this. We're going to keep doing this. You and me, Rick and Morty, 100 years. We're going to keep talking about Grant Morrison's run.
Yeah.
If you look at how smart he was with the tiers, the divisions that he did, you knew who the X-Men were. You knew who the guys that he wanted to push were going to be. So if I can be a Smark Avenger for a moment.
There you go.
You knew who the main Avengers were. You knew who Grant Morrison wanted to push as the next set of main Avengers, the mid-carders, the upper mid-carders. And then you knew who like the jobbers, the comic relief, the base guys were. You had a big, like, this was very clearly established. You knew who the X-Men were. You knew that he had big plans for Quentin Quire and the Stepford Cookies and Beak and Angel and stuff like this. But you could also tell like guys like Dummy and Basilisk and stuff like this, they were like the lower level guys, and that all makes sense. You know what I mean? Like that, it's a tier list. It all makes sense. They don't have to be the star of the show, but they're there because they add something to it. But if you start taking established characters and making them the comic relief or the butt of the joke or the silly part of it, you're like, well, why would you do that with somebody that's already established to not be like that? You don't have to do that, And I think that some guys maybe just get a little bit too hot-headed with the fact that they're writing the X-Men. And again, with Grant Morrison, we all know that by 2001, there was thousands of X-Men he could have picked.
Yeah.
But he invented a lot of his own X-Men because that was the culture at the time.
Yeah.
That made sense for him to do that. And people don't do that anymore. They take established characters and then try to put a twist on them. And you're like, that's only good if you're benefiting that character. If you're adding something to it. If you're just doing it to include that character because you like them, it's not the same. So, for example, like we've talked about Strong Guy, right? Say you and me were writing some X-Men comics, and we put Strong Guy in just because we like him. Are we putting him in because he benefits the story and has a proper role in it, or are we doing it because we like Strong Guy? And we've said Strong Guy is a good Strong Guy, obviously because it's his name, but he's also like established as a good comic foil. So there's roles for him to do that in, and that's what I don't like about the whole like him being the Lord of Hell or whatever, because you're like that's going against the two things that he's known for. That's not what he does. Strong Guy is the comic relief and the Strong Guy. Those are the two roles he can fit on any team easily.
And at that time in the story in X Factor, they had changed his look, so he didn't have the little sunglasses anymore. He had like big sunglasses.
I love the little sunglasses. And everything about Strong Guy, the fact that he was so top heavy, his little fucking Tyson Kidd hairstyle, the little glasses. I love everything about Strong Guy.
Shout out to Tyson Kidd.
Tyson Kidd with the little fucking puff hair.
Fringe. Yeah. I was not expecting a Tyson Kidd reference.
But that's it, right?
Yeah.
Because we're Smark Avengers, guys. If you don't know what Tyson Kidd looks like, look him up. The little fucking
little fringe.
Candy cane. What? No, candy. What do you call it? Candy. I call it candy floss. What do you call it?
Cotton candy?
Cotton candy. You call it cotton candy. Candy floss, like hairstyle on the top of his head, right here.
Rest of his head shaved.
You can see that on YouTube. It's right here. If you don't know what I'm talking about, right in the top of his forehead. And the rest of his head shaved. Yeah. Strong Guy had that little like puff and these tiny little glasses and like a giant fucking torso and then tiny dingly legs.
Yep.
On everything about Strong Guy, I'm like, I love this boy.
Yeah, because I remember his mutant power was that he would like kind of like how Bishop would absorb kinetic energy and then like blast it out in like power beams or whatever. Strong Guy would absorb kinetic energy and he'd just get bigger.
Yes.
But only in the top half.
Yeah. His top half would get huge, but he had to get it out within like 90 seconds or whatever. He had to just like beat the shit out of people. Yeah. But well, do you think that's a pet peeve as well then? So you're talking about established guys who like obviously have like this history and a clear character. And then they like not that they just turn them for no reason, but they just change their character for no reason. So for example,
I got a DC related one for you. That's very easy.
We'll do that, but I'm just gonna establish like the Strong Guy thing because for years, like when he came in the 80s, I think, or before that, definitely the 80s. Was he not in the early, like late 80s?
I thought it was like early 90s because I thought his first appearance was an X Factor.
I thought that too, but did that start late 80s?
No. Well, I mean,
90s?
the Simonson X Factor started around that time, but when they switched to the 90s and they switched to like Havoc being the leader, then that's when Strong Guy showed up.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking of, man. But Strong Guy for a long time like had that established, like I said. He was a strong guy, but he was also the comic relief, and he did both of those things really well. And there was a point where they changed that, and they tried to like humanize him a bit more and like give him more of a real ass character. And you're like, you don't have to do this for everybody. You know, people are allowed to just be who they are. You don't have to like make them all serious, and you don't have to like add all of this like nuance to them. It's comics. You're allowed to have fun with it. And Strong Guy was a fun character. And I don't like how they like go back and retcon. This is my pet peeve. I don't like how they go back and retcon people. How about that? Was it 9?
We're at 10 now.
10?
Yeah.
I don't like how they like retcon people to like be different from what they used to be. You know what I mean? Because Strong Guy being the Lord of Hell, you're like, where did that come from? And I know that there is like a comic book. That's what, 11?
That would be 11. Hold on. You were right, by the way. That 1985, he does show up in X Factor, but he was there as a bodyguard for Lila Cheney.
Lila Cheney, yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking of like his appearance as an actual member of the team.
Okay.
But his little spit curl isn't white in it. It's orange. She's a little ginger.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that. It's gotta be white. That's
Little
boy.
polka
Look
dot
at how
tongue.
unhappy he looks.
No, because he's yelling at Cannonball
Look,
and
oh, no,
Magic.
look at that picture. Look at that picture again, right? Look at that picture of Hitler's face. Yes. Doesn't that look like the body that Krang has in the Turtles?
It does. It does look like Krang's body.
Isn't it exactly the fucking body?
It does. I had to explain that to someone recently. They're like, "Oh yeah, the little brain guy." I was like, "You mean Krang?"
Krang, who like talked by inhaling his air. Oh, I'm Krang, like that. That's really hard to do. Oh my god.
Speaking while inhaling, yeah.
That's so hard. How did that guy do that?
Couldn't tell you.
Anyway.
So yeah.
So I think that's a big thing. Like not just like we talk about villains like being like good guys. We talked about like people like kind of changing their alliances for no reason.
Yeah.
Heal the fate. I mean, this is a
well,
this
okay.
Is a wrestling thing
I can explain the strong guy one to you because
I know the reason why I don't like it.
Okay, that's fair.
And if you want to explain it for the people, that's fine. Sure. They need to know because we have been talking about strong guy for a bit. So
yeah. So long story short, Layla Miller was a member of X Factor, and when she was introduced, Layla Miller was like a 14-year-old girl, and she always knew stuff before it was going to happen. So people weren't sure like if that was her power or not, and she would say like, "No, it's not my power. You know, I'm Layla Miller. I know things.
I know stuff.
I know stuff.
I know stuff."
And so she gets displaced in time. They like 50 fucking issues pass. Mm-hmm. Jamie jumps into the future and finds an older Layla, and you know, because she had been telling him for years, like, "Oh, you and I."
At some point, they both go into the future, but she stays
because his duplicate dies.
Yeah, she sends the Duke back, and she stays. And so later on, he goes into the future and sees her.
Yeah, he is not going to the future to see her. He just ends up in the future.
Yes,
it's an alternate future too at that. But anyway, so because for years she had been telling him like, "You at 12, yeah." Christ. So for years she'd been saying like, "You and I are gonna get married," and Jamie would get really creeped out because she's like a 14-year-old girl.
Yeah, she was like fucking 12 or whatever.
Yeah, and so then in the future when he meets older her, he's like, "I get it now."
Turns out you're already hot when you're not 12.
Yeah, who would think? Anyway, so while in the future, he finds out what Layla's powers really are, and that Layla can resurrect people from the dead, but when they come back from the dead, they don't have a soul anymore. So that's what happened to Strong Guy. He died, she resurrected him, and he was changed because he came back without his soul. And that's how he ends up, one way or another from that point on, ends up as the Demon Lord of Hell, because now he's kind of darker.
Because he has no soul.
He has no soul.
And you all know if you have no soul, you're a very dark individual. For example, Elon Musk.
Yep.
Donald Trump.
Yep.
Vince McMahon.
Yep.
John.
I was waiting to see like how long is it going to take before he runs out of ideas with John. So you know that's a good one. I have a DC related one that I'll hold it because we're specifically talking about X-Men.
Well, I mean, you can cut it if you want. You're the editor.
Bother with it. I was gonna say Bishop.
Yes. We have to talk about this. This is a thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously Bishop started off as a good guy, and then he had this very important run as a bad guy where he realized that the problem in his future where he got put into mutant concentration camps was because at some point in between his future and the present that he was in, there was a big uprising that was caused by the birth of Hope Summers somehow. Yes. And once he realized in the present that Hope Summers had been born, he figured this was after House of M. She was the first mutant that was born.
Yeah.
Bishop was like, okay, that baby is the problem. That baby will end up. That baby, it sounds like John. That baby has to die, that baby is going to end up being the problem that ends up being the reason that my future ends up the way it happens. So he kidnaps the baby. There's a lot of shenanigans. People keep throwing the baby around like a football, which is kind of weird. But eventually, um, Bishop ends up shooting. I think it's Bishop that shoots Xavier in the head. Somebody shoots Xavier because they like. I think the way I'm not 100% sure about this. The way I remember it is Bishop is going to shoot Cable, who is the baby. Cable time slides, and Bishop ends up shooting Xavier. That might not be correct.
Okay.
But what happens is,
because what's more important is the fact that Bishop is trying to kill a baby.
But what happens is Bishop chases Cable to try to kill the baby. Cable teleports himself into the future with the child and raises the child as his own. Bishop chases them both, and in that timeline, erases most of the Earth. People don't talk about this. Bishop destroys the Earth until only North America is left, and then chases Cable through time, through North America, clearly forgetting how big the rest of the world is compared to North America.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just chase him through fucking Russia? That's huge. Yeah. No.
Because the writer at the time was like, that would require, I know, cities in Russia.
That's easy to beat up. Of course, Bishop could destroy all of Russia. Easy. No, we're going to focus on North America, which is hard for Bishop to destroy because that's the timeline and the zone that he knows the most about. Yeah. No. He couldn't destroy that. So there's a period of time where Bishop chases Cable, hopping through time to try to kill this baby. So he's destroyed most of the Earth and is now trying to kill one baby that is growing up into a toddler, growing up into a young child, 5-6-year-old child. This goes on for a long time.
It's a long run.
A long time where they just keep chasing each other and beating the fuck out of each other and just destroying the world. And then at some point, I don't remember how it resolves, Cable and Hope end up coming back into the past, which is the present, and but at some point Bishop comes back too. At some point Bishop was supposed to be stranded in the future, and they just brought him back, whatever, and then they just brought him back to interact with Cable as if nothing ever happened.
Well, no, I'm going to hold you on that one, because the last couple of miniseries they've been doing with Cable, it's been centered on Cable and Bishop, and they have been addressing that, I don't like you because you tried to kill my surrogate daughter, They've that's oddly enough one of the few things that they will still remember to address.
How recent was that? Who's writing that?
Well, so I don't know if it's going to happen in the new series Time Slide, but so yeah, there's a Cable and Bishop comic coming out soonish called Time Slide.
Yes.
But there was this mini series that was taking place during the fall of Krakoa called Children of the Vault.
Mm-hmm.
And in that was Cable and Bishop teaming up to take on these this race of people that were going to be superior to the mutants.
12?
13?
13. My lucky number.
Whatever number you're thinking of, add one to it, and then there you go.
106?
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, so they did address that uncomfortable thing where Cable fucking hates Bishop, wants nothing to do with him, but he's like, you're the only military-minded person here that understands that you got to do what you got to do. And that means we're going to have to work together, but I'm still going to hold fucking grudge against you.
Right. And that makes sense in that context.
Yes.
Recently, that makes sense. But before that, they did come back together, and that was nobody, and not just Cable, but no of the other X-Men were like, dude,
try to kill a baby.
You kill the baby and also kill Xavier. What the fuck?
Do you remember when Wolverine threatened to kill the time displaced Cyclops, who was 13, 14 years old?
Yeah.
He's like, I could do it right now and I'll save us all a bunch of trouble. And the rest of the X-Men are like, oh no. Like, how come no one's standing on going, hey, this is a 13-year-old kid who doesn't have any idea what the fuck you're talking about?
But I think that's clearly a different
It's just
thing.
funny.
I
Just
mean, it's
funny.
funny, but like, imagine going to like the 13-year-old Cyclops and going, "Man, I would go and kill you because you're a dick," and then going to like the 13-year-old Bishop and going, "You dude, you're gonna fucking ravage all of the world to kill a baby, right?"
Yeah, it's a little weird.
It's a different thing. So yeah, I think that's like, I don't like that, dude. And this is a bugbear I've had for a long time. I'm like, if you're gonna turn somebody the way they turned Bishop, I know he was doing it like for the benefit of his own time, but like the way they turned Bishop was so hardcore. It was
Abrupt. Yeah.
so
It
hardcore.
went like 0 to 100.
It wasn't like there's redemption here. It was like you're trying to kill a baby and you've destroyed the entire world in order to kill that baby. Like that's hardcore. That's not dicking around. That's real.
Yeah.
And they just like blasé that. They're like, oh, he's good now. I'm like, no, he isn't. He's not good now. He fucked up a lot of stuff. Like, I always find that shit hard to buy when they try to do that redemption arc. I'm like, the redemption arc only works for like certain people. If you are a cold-hearted asshole, this is what I'm saying. There's only two versions of it. It's either you're a cold-hearted asshole that does a redemption arc and we know it's not going to stick,
Yeah.
or you're a cold-hearted asshole who does a redemption arc and the writers want it to stick even if the audience don't. And that's the same thing. Juggernaut and Magneto. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you can want it to stick. That's fine. It doesn't mean it's going to stick, and it doesn't mean it makes sense. It's just the way you've written it. If you keep writing it, and that's a pro wrestling thing too. We've talked about this shit before. I don't know if you've done on this show specifically.
Probably not.
But like in pro wrestling, if there is a character that the audience don't like, but the people who make the decisions do like, they're gonna keep putting that guy on TV, and they're gonna keep making that guy seem like a really good deal. But if the audience don't like him, it doesn't matter how good he is. It doesn't matter. The audience don't like him. And that's the same with like all this stuff. It doesn't matter like all the cool stuff you've done with Juggernaut. We all know the bad stuff you've done. And that's hard to like, we don't forget that stuff. We remember that. We comic book guys, wrestling fans, we're big nerds. We remember this shit. It's just the truth.
So to kind of go back to that Juggernaut thing, like in that comic, like he has like a weird like friendly rivalry with Magic where they are comparing, like, it's very honest to God Lord of the Rings here, Legolas and Gimli, where like they're just constantly picking at one another and are competitive with how many how many can I beat up before you beat up that many people. So it's like a competition of like who can beat up the most people the quickest amount of time.
Okay.
And that's like weirdly enough, like the characterization they've given him. I know they gave him some sort of a speech because a villain called him out for like, hey, you're not a mutant. And he gave something like, oh, the mutants accepted me when no one else did. It's like, I mean, no one else accepted you. Like, what are you talking about?
You don't think the humans would have gone, do I want that guy?
I don't know. Like, we've never been shown Juggernaut failing to interact with regular people.
Like, but he doesn't.
Juggernaut goes to get a bank loan, you know, and like
you never see that. You never see the Juggernaut just be like gonna buy a car.
Yeah.
Can you guys have like a big car, like a big car? I've seen the Juggernaut like on a plane. I'm like, no, this is not correct. The Juggernaut on a plane, because the Juggernaut he couldn't be on a plane. Wouldn't work. He's too big, you know.
Yeah.
But they're like, well, just write in the comic. I'm like, you don't have to write that into the comic, man.
New pet peeve. I get tired of getting introduced to new Young Mutants. There are so many that get introduced and they do fucking nothing with them and then they just get forgotten.
Well, that's the pet peeve, is that they keep introducing new mutants and then those new mutants do fucking nothing.
Yeah.
And again, to go back to the Grant Morrison thing, he introduced a lot of new mutants that he thought were going to be really impactful. And then all of them, pretty much, with a few exceptions.
Except for
Quentin Quire, pretty
That's
important.
A big one.
And Stepper Cuckoo's kind of stuck around. But all the other ones, like, he thought Beak was going to be a big guy. He
Beak
clearly thought
oddly
Beak was going to do something.
Beak oddly enough turned up in a couple of series. One series was after the M Day situation, a human Beak.
Yeah, he was
He was
depowered.
he was in New Mutants, New Warriors,
New Warriors.
and then
Yeah.
he had a storyline in the Krakoa era New Mutants where it was like him and Angel and their children, and like people were protecting them.
That's nice.
Yeah.
But like really, like the big storyline like fell apart because nobody wanted to do anything but Beak.
Yeah.
Like that's
Well, and that's
part
what
of it. Like,
happens with the toy chest, Like we talk about that, about how like whenever a new writer comes in, they have the toy chest,
yes.
And this is all the toys that you can have, and you can introduce your own toys, but the obligation is that when your storyline ends, you put all the toys back in the toy chest. And people hate that, but it
Somebody else can play
happens.
with those toys, but if they don't play with the toys, no, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to us. Fuck them.
Exactly.
You know.
Because I think,
That's the way
like
it
I said,
goes.
it's like my big pet peeve was Brian Michael Bendis doing that to Superman and Lois's son John, who was like a 12-year-old boy. And then he aged him up to 16, 17 years old, and then he left the book. So now there's a tons of like Superman-esque characters in DC, and when you take away something that's unique about them, it just adds to like, all right, cool, here's another person with Kryptonian powers. Whereas like a 12-year-old like little kid who's like learning how to use his powers, and his best friend is Batman's asshole 13-year-old son. Like,
If only you just said his best friend is Batman's asshole. That's weird.
that's weird.
That's weird. But
yeah.
put a stop to that.
But anyway, so like that's what I'm talking about. Like you put the toys away, and Grant Morrison put the toys away, and it just so happened people took him back out. In some instances, decided that they were just going to undo whatever he did, instead of like continuing continuity. Because that's one of the things I love about Grant. Grant is very much like, all right, here's the continuity. This is everything that came before. Here's what I'm going to do with it, and the expectation is you're going to do the same thing that I just did. I'm going to honor what came before, but I'm going to do my own thing.
Yes. And I don't like how everybody else after Grant Morrison says, fuck that. And it really, like, that's the thing about that X-Men run, is that everything after that was like, well, I'll just do whatever I want. Like, no. Do what he want to follow the trail. He left you like the easiest trail to follow. Follow the trail. And that shit like grinds me a lot. That's a pet peeve. Like, obviously, like, writers have a limited amount of time to tell their story, and they will tell a big story, and then that whenever they're passing the torch to the next guy, they're gonna go, listen, these are the threads I didn't get to wrap up in my time, but I've left them open. And most people will wrap up a lot of the threads, and it's a fresh start. But some people wrap up some of the threads and go, listen, there's a couple of these like still dangling. You figure it out. Like, you put your twist on it. You do what you want to do on it because you're a different writer. You can do something cool with it. And then the writer's like, fuck that. And they're like, that's the end of it. And that, I hate that. I think there should be a much easier transition between writers, because it always feels like it's a fresh start every single time. It's like, that's the end of this, and here's this. And I'm like, well, they should, why is the Vulture in this set of comics different from the Vulture in this set of comics? You should be able to transition them and learn from what the guy before you did and make it make sense. Like, how many times have you read stuff you're like, this isn't the Green Goblin I remember, or this isn't the Hobgoblin I remember, or like, this isn't the way
in that case, the Hobgoblin, considering how many different people have been the Hobgoblin.
That one's tricky.
Yeah.
But
no, I mean, that perfectly illustrates your point, though, right? I want to use Hobgoblin, but I want to do my own thing with Hobgoblin as a character.
So I'll make a new Hobgoblin. Yeah.
There you go.
And you can, but like, well, what's the point? There's already a Hobgoblin. The reason they made the Hobgoblin is because they already made the Green Goblin, and they wanted a different Goblin. Like, how many fucking goblins are we gonna make? Make a different guy. And that gets tricky, because then you have to like work on star power. People know who the Green Goblin is. They're not gonna accept Pink Goblin. You know what I mean? Like, you have to like be smart about it. But at the same time, you have to be like respectful to the characters that you're portraying. They can't be caricatures that you've decided upon. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? If you see Craven the Hunter in a storyline, it has to make sense. It can't just be him just like, being a silly person, because you're like, well, that's not what Craven the Hunter does.
Yeah, we all
That's
know that
why,
Craven the Hunter has animal powers,
but that's why
and
for so long Craven the Hunter was like, they kept him dead,
yeah,
because they're like, well, we can't do anything with him. What
because he's
what
dead.
could we possibly do to bring him back? There's no justification for bringing him back, and then they did, and it didn't make any sense.
Well, and they've done nothing with him really since then, for the
Right?
most.
It was not worth bringing him back because they could have done that better.
Yeah.
And I don't like that idea of like retconning people for no reason. If there's a reason for it, that's cool. Because I remember like years ago, I'm talking years ago, 60s, 70s, the Chameleon and Craven the Hunter were different people. And then they retconned that were like, they were related.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such
Which
a
I
cool.
think they did that in that movie.
Did they?
I think
What
they
movie?
did. The movie the Craven the Hunter movie that came out recently.
I haven't seen it, dude. I haven't seen it. They
I
did
heard
talk
that.
about a guy called Dimitri, so that might be.
Yeah, I did hear that. Like, yeah. Regardless, I
But I always,
Yeah.
I always loved the idea that they would connect these two guys together, and they have this contentious relationship. I'm like, that's actually great. That's a great, example of retconning somebody, because it doesn't change their fundamental character, but it adds more character to both people. That's great. But a lot of the time, what happens is they do a retcon where that changes the fundamental character of the person. And well, this isn't going to work. It doesn't work. And that's what happens when they brought Craven the Hunter back. Because they brought him back, but he was like brain dead, or he wasn't the same guy. And then you were like, well, then why bring him back? If he's not Craven the Hunter, what's the point of bringing him back?
So I have a weird like character I really enjoy. I like Trevor Fitzroy.
I love
X-Men
Trevor
world.
Fitzroy because I think he is very much like oh fuck, what do you call that guy from the X-Men? I forgot his name. I love this guy, and I'm so annoyed I forgot this. You cut this bit out till I remember what his guy's name is, because he's the guy.
Keeping it in.
No, don't keep it in.
We're keeping it in.
He's a guy that adapts other people's powers, and he was really popular in the 90s. Fabian Cortez.
Yeah.
Why
would you call Fabian Cortez popular? He got used a lot, but I don't know if anybody would say Fabian Cortez.
He was popular in the 90s.
He got used a lot in the 90s. I don't know if you'd
Which is a popular thing to do. But it's same thing with those two guys. Where like they have like such potential, and they kind of got snuffed out like way too quickly. And then if they came back, you're like, well, it's not like, because I know they brought Cortez back recently in Krakatoa, and I read that shit. And I'm like, this is not what Fabian Cortez does.
Trevor Fitzroy is going to very clearly be a recurring villain in that X-Men run that's right now with Cyclops' team.
Okay.
He's already shown up once, and he seems to be a social media guru character.
Okay.
Like, I'm really confused why too, because I mean his whole thing is he's from the future. Like, that's how you learned about Layla Miller's power, because she resurrected Trevor Fitzroy, and that explains why he's a villain.
Yes.
Because like Jamie Madrox saw him in the future, and he's like, "Holy shit!" And she's like, "Yeah, he doesn't know yet." You know, like
what's that? 14.
14. You got into the mic on that one too.
I go right into it. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
People need to know.
But yeah, no, like that's a character. The whole thing where Trevor Fitzroy was introduced as the leader of the Upstarts, and the Upstarts were a group that were like hunted mutants for sports. They didn't care if they were like heroes or villains. They just killed mutants, and they got points based off of it, and it was a game. Like that was to kind of dehumanize them.
Yep.
And like now he's like, oh yeah, this is great for our likes. And we had so many people streaming watching our stream of.
It's not wrong though.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? That's the way society goes. If you get a lot of kills, you get a lot. Talk about John. You get a lot of kills. You get a lot of likes.
Everybody knows John's social media is so big.
His TikTok is insane.
Well, it helps because he's doing the renegade dance all the time. Remember when that was a big thing?
Oh man, he loves to dance.
He
He
does.
loves to
John
dance.
does. He also is really big on makeup tutorials.
Yes, he's very good at that. And
Yeah.
then he also does like food reviews where he like goes to Costco and like I'm gonna eat a cookie.
I have no idea
Bam!
what you're now. I have no idea what you're talking about.
You don't know what that one means?
No, I don't.
How do you not know what that one means and I know what that one means?
I don't know. Well, I've not been on TikTok in like
You
a
know
couple
the
months.
Costco guys?
Is that what they do?
Yeah.
I didn't know what their gimmick was.
The Costco guys go to Costco. I'm a Costco guy. I love Costco cookies, and they eat a Costco cookie, and they go bam,
Oh man, I'm glad that was the draw that
and then they
Tony
beat
Khan
up
needed for
QT
AEW apparently.
Marshall.
And yeah, I'm glad to see that's what's drawing ratings.
That I mean, dude, it gets results. That was one of the most popular shit on their show. Costco guy. So
No kidding.
what does that tell you?
Yeah. So, okay, let's go. We're talking about like introducing like young mutant characters. They've introduced two more sets of young mutant characters. They introduced like three new characters in the Exceptional X-Men run, which is the Kitty Pryde Emma Frost book, and they introduced another four in the Uncanny X-Men book that Gail Simone's writing.
Okay.
And like, I don't see why we need them.
Okay.
Because like, if the whole thing is like, oh, they're mentoring these students because they're new, then it's like, but there was already like pre-established characters that are still young. Like you could accomplish the same thing with these existing characters already. Like, you know who I realize is missing? Fucking Gabby. Do you remember Laura Kinney's little sister?
Yes.
Yeah, she's not anywhere. Why are we not using Gabby? She's fun. She's got the healing factor, but she doesn't feel pain.
There's too many characters.
She gets thrown to the side of a building and she's just laying there with a smile on her face. And it's like, are you okay? She's like, I think I broke every bone in my body. Give me a couple minutes.
Just like me.
Yep. Well, you're only 7 apples high.
I think part of that
don't realize is that you're in a dollhouse right now.
Yeah, I'm a little baby. I'm a tiny little boy. This is a Barbie house, and I'm
a little Barbie house.
I'm a tiny little figure.
You're gonna bring your wife over, and it's just a regular sized Barbie, but to you, she's like a couple inches taller.
Well, I would love to show you my wife, but she's unavailable at the moment. She's taking the kids to clarinet class.
I thought you said clownette class. I'm like, it's a special school for female clowns only.
What's that? 15?
16.
We're at 16. We're already at 16. Fuck me. All right.
So
what the fuck was I talking about?
Oh, we were talking about like young mutant characters getting introduced.
Okay, so I think that's a real like bugger for me because I'm like they already have like that was the reason that they did House of M.
Yeah. So like for example, let's just go with it. The first batch was the New Mutants, classic lineup. Then you had Generation X. Then you had Young X-Men, New X-Men, whatever characters they introduced in Krakoa because they couldn't help themselves but introduce
the Hellions.
The Hellions, yeah, because that was the Emma Frost students.
Yep.
So they've had tons of new.
They've had so many. There was so many X-Men.
Because each of those teams are at least 8 people.
Yep, there's so many. So the reason they did House of M was to trim that fat, and then they did Krakoa, where they were like, "Let's bring them all back. Fuck them." And you're like, "Well, we gotta like have some reservations here. What's the point of bringing back all these similar sounding characters? There's no reason for it."
Yeah.
Like that's part of the thing. Like we got rid of these guys on purpose. And I don't like the idea of people keep introducing new characters that already do stuff that's already established. There's no reason for that. And you can see that. Like that's what you're talking about. Like it just doesn't fit in.
So one of the two like newer X-Men characters I always liked were Surge and Dust.
I like Surge.
Surge has just now showed up in X-Force. However, that book looks like fucking trash, so I'm not reading it. And I don't even know where Dust is right now. But Dust is such a unique character.
Dust was a good one. Dust, I think that was a Grant Morrison one, right?
Well, and Hellion, he just turned up as the villain for the Nyx book.
Okay.
And it's just like, Christ, like, I liked Hellion because he was like basically an evil kid with telekinesis.
And who wouldn't want that?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want a little kid with telekinesis?
Yeah.
That's one of John's kids.
Yeah.
Well, we can't
That's
talk about that legally. We're not allowed to talk.
no. We're gonna give people an idea of what John's children are like, and I'm sure they're just
Yeah,
little
we're not
angels, but we're
allowed.
not
Legally, we're not
trying to
allowed to talk
slap their
about
brains
that.
out with their tongues.
But it's a whole thing. John will be able to talk about that next week.
We'll ask him about it.
Yeah, we'll talk. He'll be like, I don't want to talk about it.
These last 2 episodes won't be out by the time we end up recording that, so John will legitimately have no idea what we're talking about.
He will though, because he lives this. This is his life. He'll know what his insane
His
children are
paycheck.
like. Yeah, they're his children. We're not making this up.
Oh, I missed you, little Billy and Tiny Tom.
But that's like one. What is that? Like 15, 16?
I think we're at 17 now.
It kind of dribbled out there. I'm
Yeah.
sorry about that one.
That's okay. It's okay. So I will say that I do think we should probably start wrapping this one up.
Nah. All right, but I mean, I'm not in charge.
No. Do you have any final pet peeve kind of comments?
I think we hit upon the things that I really don't like. Like, I really don't like this redemption arc of clear villains. I don't mind I kind of like, oh, he's 50-50 kind of thing. But like, if you're like a definite asshole, like clearly like a terrible person, and then your redemption arc, like, oh, he's actually great, and then that happens forever. You're like, well, I don't buy it. I don't buy this at all. I don't like that. I don't like the villains being the good guys for real.
Mm.
There has to be a storyline to it. Otherwise, and maybe it's like a storyline we all can see coming. Doesn't matter. If the Juggernaut is a good guy forever now, that sucks. He's not supposed to be a Juggernaut on the good side. That's not what he's supposed to do. So shit like that annoys me.
Yeah.
People introducing characters they don't need to introduce was a good one. I think that like there's so many X-Men already. You don't need to keep adding more X-Men. Just use the old X-Men. I understand you want to say more X-Men were born since then, and try to make it like a thing. You don't have to like get that deep with it. Just say, all right, here's Beak or whatever.
You had alluded to it earlier why House of M happened. I remember very clearly. Right. Some editor was like, it's hard to pitch this idea that they're this endangered species when there's so fucking many of them.
But that's exactly it. Like there's so many X-Men. The reason, and I don't really like House of M, but the reason they did it was to just trim the fat. And then if you just keep adding more fat to it, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
You just use the already fat you have. Don't just go out and get more steak.
I think in general, and maybe this will be my closing thoughts on it. Well, to focus in on that one, I think that there's right now in comics this idea of like, let's be super fan servicey and let people.
What number was that?
You just wiggled your fingers.
I didn't know what number that was. I burped in the mic. What number was that?
I think you're at 17 or 18.
17, not bad.
Yeah. So this idea of like fan service and letting people have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
So like case in point, like all of Batman's sidekicks have identities, and 2 of them are even going by Robin still, and like all of the Superman's kids are getting featured in books, even though like it devalues Superman because So like now it's like, oh no, we'll bring back all of the X-Men. We'll bring every single mutant back. It'll be fine.
Yes. I hated that, man.
Well, no. Because like Krakoa just got full.
Right.
And then it's just because I understand like the notion of like every character is someone's favorite character, but like it doesn't work if your favorite character is just in the background of one panel at the Hellfire Gala, Right.
Like what do they do? This was the thing. I'm gonna break things down into a way that I can understand things. But there was a Pokemon game, and there's been a couple of these Pokemon games where, like, obviously, like if you don't laugh at this, I can see
I just love it. Let me use this. Let me do a reference I understand. Pokemon.
I do understand what I do.
That's fair.
Okay.
Do what you need to do, man.
So like let's go back to. And that's equivalent to the X-Men, right? But like, let's go back to like 1996, 97. when Pokemon Blue came out, you had a Pokemon you played with. That was your Pokemon. And then the
Yeah.
next generation of Pokemon came out, and it was loads of different Pokemon, but you could still play with the old Pokemon too, and
Yeah.
they were the ones you played with. Fast forward to like 10 years in the future, and I remember, I think it was like X and Y on the Nintendo 3DS, where you would just start off your Pokemon adventure, and you had like 7 generations of Pokemon to pick from. So you start your game, and you would go out into the grass to find a Pokemon, and you could find guys from Generation 1, Generation 2, Generation 3, Generation 4, Generation 5, and then the new one you're playing right now. You could find any of those Pokemon immediately. And you're like, well, what's the fun of this? Why? Surely, if you're starting a new show, you would put all of the people you want to be on the show on your show immediately, right? Why, if I'm playing Generation 6 of a Pokemon game, would I want to go back and immediately catch Pikachu?
Yeah, no, like I said, it's fan service. It's like that's what's big right now. Is like we want to
Right.
give everyone everything.
So why? And I don't mind a bit of choice. Like, that's fair enough. Like, for example, say we're doing that show. We're Generation 6 of Pokemon. We've had 5 generations already of Pokemon. So we start the show. There's some new Pokemon. There's some old Pokemon. That's fair enough. But
Sure.
why are all of the Pokemon all of the old ones? I don't need that. You have to be smart about what you keep and what you don't keep. You have to be selective.
Yeah.
And that really annoyed me. Not that it was you didn't have the choice. You had too much choice. Because
So-
if you do have too much choice, you will just pick the one that you're familiar with. You're not going to go with, and that's the same with X-Men. If you have like the X-Men from the 80s and the
Yeah.
X-Men from the 90s and the X-Men
So-
from the 2000s, the X-Men from now, you're not going to give a shit about the X-Men from like 20 years ago.
No. So here's the fact of the matter, right? The fact of the matter is when the Krakoa era launched and they were like, New Mutants comic is one of the books that are coming out. And the New Mutants lineup had some people from the New Mutants, some people from Generation X, and like that was going to be the book. It's like, okay, these are like the younger mutants characters. They're not the kids anymore, but they're also not the older adults.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, as time went by, they phased the Generation X mutants out, and then the book was just another New Mutants book.
Right.
It's just Danny and Ronnie and stuff like that.
Who cares?
Yeah. Well, and so to kind of go to this, we are from a generation, or I'm going to date ourselves here a little bit.
No, we're not dated. We're still 20 years old. Both you and me. We're clearly.
I've known you for 20 years. I've known you since I was in the womb.
Both of us. What's that? 18? Both of us are 20 years old. Both of us. Look at us. Rick and Morty, 20 years old. John's going to have to get used to doing this. With his mask on.
There's like one Morrissey performance. I think he's like doing Boy with a Thorn in His Side, and he's just like this the whole time.
You like Morrissey, right? You like the Smiths?
I like the Smiths. I like the Smiths. I think Morrissey as a person is kind of detestable, but I will admit that I enjoy the music.
I like the Smiths. I like Morrissey as a singer.
Yeah.
19. Morrissey as a person might be like one of the worst people of all time.
Oh yeah, there's a. We'll tell this story and then we'll wrap the show up. There was an interview from like the 80s on MTV, and it's Robert Smith from The Cure. And the interviewer is like, "Oh, you guys are kind of like the Smiths and Morrissey." And he was like, "I really wish you hadn't said that." And she's like, "Why?" He's like, "I find him to be detestable. He's so obnoxious and arrogant." And that's the truth. Morrissey is a fucking, before like the mild racism shit came out, he's a fucking pseudo intellectual. It's like, yeah, man, I'm glad you read Oscar Wilde. And it's so funny because the song Cemetery Gates is about that. About like, oh, you think you're really smart because you read, Oscar Wilde and Yeats and stuff, and it's like, motherfucker, are you singing to yourself? Like, your whole personality is about how fucking smart you are.
Well, maybe he is.
Maybe he is.
Maybe he is. I mean, I feel like that a lot with like whenever you see like these pseudo intellectuals online now, and you're like, well, you don't know anything. I mean, it's the same with like Morrissey. Like some of the stuff you say is going to be true, correct. But a lot of the stuff you have to say is not going to be true.
Yeah.
And maybe you should think about that.
Yeah.
You know? And I like the Smiths. I like Morrissey. He is great. He's a good songwriter.
Yeah. Saw him live a couple years ago. Saw him in
He's
Akron.
good fun, man. But I'll tell you this, but you gotta separate the artist from the art.
Yeah.
You know,
I
John
will tell
Lennon
you,
beat his wife up. You gotta separate the artist from the art.
Yep. I just remember, like, even though, you know, the man is not a spring chicken any longer, he still had a bunch of 13-year-old boys crying, throwing flowers at him in Akron.
Ooh, is that a good thing?
I'm just saying he's had the exact same fans since the Smiths, and it's
Is
all
it
like
good that he has
boys are a little too sensitive.
13-year-old fans crying about him? I don't think that that's good.
I also know that he still plays Meat is Murder with accompanying footage of like animals getting slaughtered, which is like, Jesus Christ. Yes.
Oh yeah, he does not like that shit.
Well, yeah, because isn't that always the story of like you can't sell meat like at the concessions at his shows, so he refuses to play?
Yeah, he really does not like that.
All right,
but I'm like, folks, listen, obviously I'm biased, but dude, meat's delicious.
Well, folks, thank you for listening to our show.
That's the end of it. Meat is delicious. Listen, man, suck on some meat. You'll love it. It's great. Put a little meat popsicle in your mouth. You'll love it. A hot dog. I'm sorry.
That's enough. We're good.
That one.
We'll stop on that one. Just because
promoting hot dogs is too much.
We need to wrap it up at some point, Dylan. So, actually, no, this was an episode of the Smark Avengers. This is another Smark Avengers -1, and it's become apparent that we do need all three of us here because we do need somebody to keep us in order.
What do you mean?
I'm just meaning that we did have like a weird diatribe about Morrissey, unprompted.
Don't you think that John would have something to say about Morrissey?
I don't think John would have something to say about Morrissey.
I think John would have said something about Morrissey. 100%.
Really? Because John's always said, like, oh, no, hold on, I got to do the voice. Oh, no, I just like dad rock, Led Zeppelin.
He does, but he's lying because he loves grunge music.
Well, would you say grunge music is dad rock now? We're not getting into this. We're trying to wrap the show up.
My dad does not listen to grunge. My dad hates grunge music.
That's not an Alice in Chains fan?
No, he fucking hates it.
That sucks.
I know.
All right.
I live it. I live it every day. Does your dad love grunge music?
I don't know what music my dad likes. That would require me to know him on a personal level, which does not happen.
Grunge music is not dad rock. Done.
All right, folks. So this has been an episode of Smark Avengers where we talked about some pet peeves about the X-Men and some other topics. Dylan, I know you have plans in the future to start up another YouTube channel. We'll keep our eyes and ears tuned up for that one. We got some ideas. At least I have some ideas that would be great for it.
I have ideas, but historically I have a lot of ideas that don't come into fruition. I would love everybody to go and subscribe to my YouTube page, explodyplays.com, where I play old video games. I have a lot of video games that I have recorded that I want to upload. They will be uploaded at some point. I'm not going to forget about them. They will be uploaded at some point. I want to make my own
parts of like Pikmin, right?
I finished Pikmin. Pikmin's finished. I just have to upload it. And I want to make more videos in the future, just playing video games. And I'm going to try and start a music channel. We'll see how that goes. Explody Plays. Not Explody Plays. It should just be Captain Explody, I think, on YouTube.
Explody Listens.
Explody Plays.
This is also, it doubles as your talk show where you take in calls where people are dealing with their psychological
I would
issues.
Love to do like a little audio.
You'll hear from John's kids all the time.
His kids are not allowed to make calls outside of the insane asylum.
Okay.
I have a book. You can check the book out. It's called The Wonderful World of Captain Explody. It's on Amazon. I'm going to try and make another second book. I meant to make it last year. I didn't get it finished. The other book is very close to being finished, so it will 100% be up online on Amazon in 2025. That's a fact. I can guarantee that. It's very close to being finished. So it'll be
Good,
done
good.
next year. 100. Oh no, this year.
Yeah, 2025.
2025 is this year.
Yep, this is the second week of January.
Yes, it is that week that you said it was.
Yep.
So this year, follow me on Explodey Plays, and then look at my book, The Wide World of Captain Explodey, on Amazon. If you follow those both things, you'll see all the shit I'm into, and that'll be great. Don't worry about
There
it.
you go.
And then John has his letterbox thing. I think he's on
Yeah.
like a 78 million.
Yeah, because the second week in January, John's already
Yeah,
at
107,000.
245 million.
Yeah, he's seen like so many films. You're like, there's not this many films. He's already seen them.
He's
And
tapped
he's
into
waiting.
that Minority Report machine, and he's like
Yeah,
watching the movies that haven't come out yet.
he's sitting waiting like at his house, like when the next film's coming out, because he's already watched all the films. When's the next film? Here it is. Oh, I watched it. I'm like, how did you watch it already? I'm John. You don't understand, you know. Corey, talk about your shit.
This is everything he knows about John. Is John has criminally insane children, and he watches a lot of movies.
That is true. That's all we've said.
So I have my other show, Large Old Cup. Even though this is the second week of January, my new episode that I just dropped about a book regarding spiritualism and Harry Houdini. I just put that one out.
Did you one about Harry Houdini?
Yeah.
Oh, I love Harry Houdini. I love Harry Houdini. I do.
That's my Harry Houdini tattoo.
Oh yeah. Well, look at this. I rubbed off. Shit.
All right, folks. So that's gonna do us next week. John may be back with us.
Promote your show more.
But it's there's nothing else to say. Large Old Cup.
Go to Large Old Cup on Spotify. Listen to it. Yes. Download it. Give it the views that it deserves to get. And then Corey will be very happy, and I will be very happy if you can like put that into your because you'll find something you've never seen before. You've never heard of Old Large Cup. You listen to it, you'll have one guy's perspective on life. Maybe it'll change your life as well. You don't know. You have to experience it for yourself.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Give it a go. See what happens.
I thought you told me you weren't good at promotion.
Huh?
Don't worry about it. All right, folks. We'll see you next week. Bye.
What happened?
Don't worry about it. Bye.
All right. Goodbye. All right, that's it.
Bye.
John?
No, he got out. He's escaped.
Get back into the asylum, John.